Like,
well, that's weird because on our planet, women live longer than men.
Yeah,
weird.
No, it's true.
Okay,
They deal with stress better. So this couple looks like they're perfect in their late 20s. They seem married. They seem really friendly. So just so you know who the Palladians or the Nordics are, this was popularized by George Adamski, who was a contactee, famous contactee back in the day, who supposedly made contacts with the Palladians and Nordics, who have a very peaceful mission, who want to help humanity raise its consciousness, and are very worried about other alien influence on us. Some dark stuff that is out there. I do admit there's dark alien stuff out there. All right, Matt, just calm down. But most of the stories are not. So now I want to read you something from the book that I thought was fascinating, how he described what was happening to him once he was on the ship. So he's on the ship, he stands up, they walk him around. So then this is what he says, how he describes him. One man was about 6 feet tall and the other was a beautiful woman about 5 feet 8 inches tall. They both had on silver gray jumpsuits that formed to their body, not too loose nor too tight. It was all one piece. Even their shoes were a part of the apparel. There was no collar to the suit, but it went up to their necks. She had long, flowing, brownish blonde hair down to 1/3 of her back. It was shiny and very pretty to look at. She was very pretty, and she smiled at me. He was very handsome and had blondish-colored hair. They both had very blue eyes that were warm as they looked at me. Both of them looked perfect to me. They were beautiful to watch, and they seemed very friendly.
Oh, you know
what? He was
what?
an absolute awe.
This sounds
weird.
like Ken and Barbie. Okay.
I just watched a video on Pornhub that started exactly like this. Keep going. We'll see where this one goes.
Yeah, I wish there was a category on Pornhub.
This might
like
be
that.
different.
Was her hair that long, Matt?
Oh, yeah.
Okay, continue.
Don't
You
ruin
said
my
hair?
beautiful, awesome
never mind.
UFO story.
It's not
Sorry,
dark at all.
sorry, I'll shut
It's
up.
not dark
Okay,
at all.
okay.
Keep going.
No, you're good.
Keep going.
So he's taken to a window, the window where he saw them looking at him, and he sees the stars moving by really fast, and they were clearly whipping through space. And the whole time, they never said a thing. They all communicated nonverbal communication. He doesn't mention telepathy, but he just was led around, and it all felt very friendly. And then when he came back from the trip, obviously I told that story earlier, he comes home, and his mom doesn't really believe him the next day of the UFO event. Long story short, his life goes on, his whole life. He has other UFO events throughout his life afterwards, which is very common. He had other interactions his family has, his kids have. None of it negative, though. No butt probing, no reptilians, nothing that's out of control. I think that's the 5th time we said butt probing, so if someone's actually taking shots right now, they're fucking hammered.
Yeah.
You're not going to be able to stand.
You're done. You're blacking out right now. So this is what Ron says in the end about this encounter.
Alien roofies.
It was a wonderful and awesome experience. Okay, this is what Ron said. I know there are many other worlds out there, and these were 2 beings from one of them who chose me to give a ride. Why? I don't know, except in my mind, I felt they were doing me a great service and enjoyed my company. And then, in the end, Ron goes on to say he became a very religious person, which is very common with these UFO events and abductions. So Ron's encounter with what appeared to be perfect beings also led him to believe that the Earth will soon undergo a transformational event, the equivalent of the biblical rapture, says Ron. Now I know that God is the biggest factor concerning all life and how each play a part in the great and glorious plan of God. The whole story will unravel soon. Most will be surprised by the truth, and many, many bubbles will burst. It's all so amazing and wonderful, and no need to worry. Fuck yeah, Ron, there's no need to worry. Aliens aren't bad, Mr. O'Connor.
Okay, so wait, hold on a second. There's a rapture coming, but there's no need to worry?
Well, yeah, I think it's a great
If
transformation.
you believe, you're
if
all
you
good.
believe.
Look, this is like
Jesus.
this classic. I'm going to push back on you here, Josh. This is classic manipulation, I feel like, where they're all sort of led to believe like, oh, this is a positive experience and you're loving this and we're having a great time and high fives and beer and Skittles and it's all love and light. But what actually happens? Like, it's not like any information that is delivered during these abductions or any of these cases ever really gets further than like these people getting laughed at, you know? It's not like...
Well, that's
They
why I
drop, like,
enjoyed
a
this
huge
story, though, because
truth
he didn't get a message. Like, usually these people get, like, you must save the environment, and the Earth is destroying
Right.
itself, and nuclear bombs are bad. And, like, all that shit we've heard of. That's why I like this story, because it was like Flight of the Navigator, you know? It was like, oh, a little kid thought we were cool. Let's take him on a ride. Fuck it. You know? And then we'll just let him go off in his world and live his life of wonder. And, like, you know, I just thought that was beautiful.
Yeah, that's weird. What's the point of that?
There's no. That's the thing. There was no point, but he radically changed his life afterwards. He transformed into a very religious person, whether you think that's good or bad, and his whole life was different because of it. So, I mean, I don't know. I just think that was really cool.
You know what I think is interesting about Ron, in like having this like major belief in God afterwards. I think that all humans, when they have some kind of experience, whether it's an alien abduction or it's some kind of supernatural event that happens to them that's so they cannot explain it, the only thing they can do is believe in the unknown a little bit more. So I feel like that's why a lot of people like go the other end of the spectrum, like, you know, like looking for God, looking for aliens, you know what I mean? Because they've experienced something they can't really explain, so they believe in it just deeper. I don't think.
I like that.
So I feel like that's kind of the pattern with those people that have that experience. I mean, like, what would you do if you had that experience? You'd believe in something so powerful like God. You would just go deeper into it.
Yeah, I think I can climb aboard that train. Yeah, but you know, having like us three people like us who are into this stuff all the time, we have enough, I guess, research into this whole thing to not all of a sudden be like, well, it was crazy, almost magic, so therefore God. Like, I think
right.
Yeah.
People who are into this kind of thing are more likely to be like, wow, aliens, you know, the truth is out there kind of thing, rather than I'm going to start reading this Bible right here, you know? But yeah, I get why people dive straight into religion, for sure.
Yeah. Well, what is God? Anyway, we're not answering that question in this podcast, but we are going to talk about Josh's CIA story.
Yeah, quickly. This is a quick tangential little thing I found really interesting. Before Matt starts, I'm almost guessing that's going to be something dark. Is that Jack Ballet wrote this book called Forbidden Science 4, and there's just one line in it which confirms again the theory that a lot of UFO abductions might be staged for various reasons. And all he writes is, I have secured, this is on Thursday, 26 March 1992, I have secured a document confirming that the CIA simulated UFO abductions in Latin America, Brazil, and Argentina as psychological warfare experiments. That's all he writes. Literally, that's all. There was like 3 articles written about this I found, and that's literally the only line in the whole book. There's no reference to where that is, what's going on with that. But Jack Valet is super credible, so I believe he really
he is for sure.
So he's claiming that some of them are
my labs.
Like a government, government.
Yeah, situation. And that's the dark ones usually, generally, because a lot of the dark ones, people see military personnel in the background. So what I'm trying to get at is if it's dark, it most likely could be us involved. And aliens. It could be both in some sort of deal. And there's all those rumors that we've signed deals with different races to be able to abduct people. And that is what's really going on. I don't know. But what do you got, Mr. O'Connor? You going to take me on a ride?
All right, listen up.
Dark side.
I'm going to crack another cold one here. And, you know, this is not overly dark. In fact, it's a little silly. The first one. The second one, like, no one dies. And I got a couple of stories here. So I tried to dive into...
No one dies. Lame.
No one dies, yeah. So everyone makes it through the end of these ones, which is different for me. But I tried to look at, like, some... You know, obviously the classic abduction is most related to the whole idea of missing time and losing chunks of your life through some sort of anomalous scenario that's taken place. But these 2 stories I really wanted to jump aboard because I thought they were kind of odd in the fact that they weren't classic UFO abduction kind of scenarios. They're more like, if you think about it, they're more kind of like stepping in and out of, like we talked about last week with the veil, with, you know, those predator creatures being able to step through the veil.
Yeah.
This was kind of something similar, and the second story I got kind of relates to it as well. So the first story happened in 1978 in Buenos Aires, Argentina.
Ooh.
And it involved these 2 fellas. Nothing to do with... These guys weren't, like, into this UFO stuff. They didn't know anything about it. Just a couple of guys driving back home after a day of work. It was about 9 p.m. at night, and they were kind of going through a rural section of the road and sort of taking a ramp onto the expressway in their pickup truck. So, as they were driving onto the expressway, they experienced this weird feeling of kind of their truck floating, and all of a sudden the truck started going way faster than they thought they were going. Like they just started taking off, and it was like their truck was floating. They couldn't feel the bumps of the road anymore, and they were just kind of floating through space all of a sudden. Then everything goes black. Like even in the headlights as they were driving, they couldn't see anything. It was just total darkness, unable to see a thing.
But they're in a city. They're on a ramp. Like so, they're not far from civilization.
They were taking the on ramp in a kind of a rural area onto the highway, basically onto the interstate or whatever. I mean, in Argentina's version of that. So they were taking the on ramp on, and as they were coming onto the on ramp, their truck started to go. It started to almost float. Like it didn't like take off the ground, but it was like they were no longer on the road because it was super smooth, and they were traveling way faster than they thought they were. He wasn't like leaning on the gas or whatever. This just started going really fast. The world around them just sort of drops, and everything was black. For a few minutes this lasted. And even like he started like turning on the high beams and couldn't see a thing. Well, gradually, as they're sort of feeling like this momentum pushing them forward in like a really quick way, it was like they were just flying. They came into this city materialized around them all of a sudden. So they're driving down this main street of this city. But the city
like a normal city, like a
well. Let me describe it.
City?
No, not so much. It was like they were driving on a road, but still smooth as hell, like as smooth as a baby's bottom. It wasn't like they were bumping up and down on roads. It was like they were just floating through the city, and they could see these buildings either side of them, all uniform, all very much the same sort of building, and they were just zipping by down this main road of the street. Everything on the street. The street was just empty. There was no one around, no one on the roads. They couldn't see anything in the buildings. But it was a city. Like it was a full-on, like someone had manufactured the city. But it was a very alien feeling. And I guess what sort of gave him that feeling was everything was bathed in this red light. Right? So they were trying to like, where is this light coming from? And it was almost like whatever the sun in the sky or whatever was happening in the sky, they could sort of look up through the windows, and they couldn't see the top of the buildings. They said they were so tall, each building was the same, and it was so tall they couldn't see the top, and it would just sort of disappeared into this red mist, and the light that was coming through was just red, like bright red, and that's all they could see. Anyway, so they said everything was red. The avenue was 50 to 60 meters wide. That's metric. I don't know. You can convert that yourselves into American lengths.
How many yards is that?
Matt's too drunk.
Yeah, I can't do math right now, guys.
Wait,
Even
so
the
before
best
you
of
go
times.
on, this feels more like an interdimensional slip, like they slip
Right.
somewhere else quick,
Yeah.
instead of aliens being involved.
Yeah.
Absolutely. Yeah, so if anyone's read sort of Jenny Randall's, the UK researcher, brilliant stuff, brilliant researcher, but she wrote a series of books, one of them being called Time Storms, where it seems like people slip in and out of these time warps, basically, and they end up in like back in time or forward in time sometimes as well.
Yeah.
So it could be that, or it could be just literally like jumping through to another dimension. That was just completely alien to these two men. But anyway, they were saying that the buildings started from the road, then went upwards completely straight, very tall. We couldn't see the tops of these buildings because everything was reddish up there. So there's just like I said, sort of disappeared into this reddish haze.
It's almost like it's like a planet that's circling like a red dwarf star. You know, that idea that
maybe.
like...
And there was a city there, yeah.
Yeah. There's like whole theories on that, like the origin of the planet on Earth actually was bathed under a red light. You know, that we orbited a red dwarf star for a while, and that's where that idea that like infrared can help your skin or heal you, like when you put infrared lights over plants to make them grow, that kind of thing. I don't know.
Interesting.
Just interesting.
Okay.
So it actually could be something in the past instead of the future. But go ahead.
Yeah. Yeah, so and apparently while they were there, it started getting very cold, like below zero cold, like freezing all of a sudden as they were in this space. Apparently they could breathe